Today, we're talking about taking action. I'm Danielle Marie, founder of Alioup. So, action creates information. And one of the easiest things to happen as an entrepreneur is to sort of sit in your head. And I am majorly at fault of doing this. I will overthink something like you would not believe. And that is actually not sometimes it's good to think, obviously. You wanna think about your idea, you wanna think about your next action. But at some point, you kinda have to say, "Okay, am I spending too much time on this in my head?" Because one of the best things that we can do is actually just get out in the market and just test what we think. Even if it's not perfect, even if isn't exactly what you wanted it to be yet, just stepping out into market and testing something will give you more information faster than any information you're going to gather just from sitting in your room and thinking about it or staring at your computer screen and maybe even researching some things. And again, some of that is important and necessary, but really getting out and testing what you think to be true is the best thing you could do for yourself. You can research, strategize, and think through all the possible outcomes, but answers only come from movement. Also, that movement may not teach you what will work, but it definitely will teach you what won't work. I have seen that over and over again as I was testing different ideas, and especially in the very beginning when I was launching Q Up. One of the things that I learned was there's a difference between when you have a concept and you're just, chatting with people about it and, "This is what I think. Do you think it would be helpful to you?" A lot of times people say, "Oh, yeah, that's great. I think that would be really helpful." But then when you actually take it out and say, "Okay, here it is. Will you use it or will you buy it?" The It's surprising kind of how things change sometimes. It's different when people have to take action or they have to put down money, and you learn something different when it's real. And that's why taking action is so important. That if you just sit with an idea or a concept and you don't actually like move forward with it, you're really not going to know. So before getting too deep down, that's why they say MVPs are so important. Before getting too deep into something, take a moment to really assess where you are and go, okay, is this enough? And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be everything you want it to be, but is this enough to just go test and see what people think? See if somebody's actually willing to move forward with me. That action is going to teach you a lot. Many of the things that we worry about will never happen. I'm notorious for this. I think about all the outcomes, and it's this again is why action is so important because you could sit and think about, oh, this could happen or this could happen or this could happen, but until we actually start moving forward and doing something about it, we don't really know. So sometimes we sit with a lot of anxiety over something that maybe we don't need to be worried about, or maybe there's even a better idea behind something that we would learn if we just get out and start asking questions. This kind of happened for me in the transition between Alley-oop and excuse me, the transition between Queue Up and Alley-oop. As I got out into market with Queue Up, I saw a lot of challenges and things that well, first, the challenges of what I had built and why I felt like it was gonna be really difficult for me to move that forward bootstrapping. But then also I started to identify other problems that people were talking about or expressing. And then I also started to really see what I was challenged with as a small business owner. I started to realize that, gosh, it's really hard to market and how do you market yourself and your business and how much does that cost? And what if I don't have the money? And how do I move this forward without the money? And, you start running into all these issues. And for me, because of the nature of my product and what I wanted to do and my background, all these things, that is sort of what led me into the direction of changing and pivoting and turning Q Up into Alley Oop. And I would have never figured that stuff out without taking action, getting out and testing the waters, even, in the end, it even ended up being an idea that wasn't what I started with, but I wouldn't have known that if I had not tried. Progress usually comes from trying something and not from a perfect decision. I I don't know if I've ever had the perfect decision at the beginning. I've had a lot of ideas and I've gone out and tried a lot of things. And sometimes I have tried some stuff that, okay, that's it. But it did not come from sitting down and making some notes or even, getting on Chat GPT or maybe, coming up with ideas there. And chatting with other people have been great. I've gotten a lot of ideas. That's actually a really good thing to do is talk to other entrepreneurs, or just people in general, and that's given me a lot of ideas. But the progress actually comes from taking all of that and then going out and seeing what works. That is a starting point, it's not an ending point, and it's a starting point that you need to do more with to find a final solution that you're looking for. Waiting for certainty also can feel very safe, but that is the very thing can get you completely stuck. Expecting certainty is something that I think we have to really just push past because that is the nature of entrepreneurship. It you're We don't go into something knowing for certain it's gonna work. I I don't think I've ever had an idea that I've started with and it stayed the exact same from the moment that, I first thought of it. I think they all evolve and change. I mean, even something as building software that, we think sometimes the way that we've designed this section of the software because we believe people will use it a certain way and the user behavior will be a certain way. But then we release it and it gets used. And I've even seen this in myself that we'll design something and then as part of the design team, I'll actually use it in real life after we've designed it, which I've also been a part of. And then I realize as I'm using it, this isn't right. Like, this isn't exactly what we need it to be. So, this is difficult, or I wish this was over here or over there. But that's just an example of how what you think in your head is not always the answer, is not always the right path. However, you have to start somewhere. So all of this time that we spend thinking and conceptualizing and creating is critical to the entire process. But we also have to be careful not to sit in that space too long because sitting in that space too long stops that process. It stops the creative process. We have to get out and get feedback and start to understand what we're thinking and building better so that we can actually make it better and make it usable and make it something that people actually want. Every action expands what is possible because you learn something new. Either a new connection appears, a better idea forms, a different opportunity opens, a problem becomes clearer. All of these things happen with action. And I want to talk a little bit about taking action. And I mentioned this earlier, but we can really get stuck in our head or being on paper. And sometimes being stuck happens for a couple of reasons. And these certainly are not all the reasons, but these are reasons that I certainly have come up on. Is one of the things is we're not comfortable with the step we need to take. So if whatever we need to do, whether it is code or it is research or it is getting out and being social and meeting people and networking or whatever it is that is the step that causes us to take the next action that we need to do. If we're not comfortable in that, it is very easy to stay in the comfort zone. If we're somebody that has a hard time with networking and but we're really good behind the computer screen, it's very easy to just continue to build or continue to do things behind the computer screen that help your business because you see it as, oh, I'm helping my business by doing this. But really, what you should be doing or what we should be doing is going out and meeting people, networking, and learning if the product works. So it's easy to do this. And like I said, I've done it too many times to count. So one is we have to be really self aware. what is happening in our business? And sometimes for me, and this may not work for everybody, but for me, is I have to just kind of step outside of myself and look in and go, okay, what is happening right now? And remove myself from the business. That, this business is its own entity and it needs to be successful. And what needs to happen, assuming, let's say I wasn't even doing it, what is the next step that needs to happen for this business? And once you figure out what that next step is, then it's like, okay, then what do I need to do to accomplish that? Sometimes it is having someone else come in and do it. Sometimes it is, and especially if you're a really early stage and it's you that has to do it. So then, thinking about what's it going to take for me to do that and then holding yourself accountable to it. If it's I need to go out and network and then, maybe you take small actions at a time. The next action is, okay, I've got the next 2 days available. I'm going to block the next 2 days. I'm going to go online. I'm going to look up 2 events that I'm going to go to, and you put them on your calendar, and no matter what, you're like, "I'm going to go do that," and have no expectations for yourself. It's just you're just gonna show up. Make it easy the first time. I'm just gonna show up. I don't even have to talk to anybody. I can just be present in the room. And then hold yourself accountable to do it, but make it in a way that you can be more comfortable to get out the door, get in the car, to go show up so that you can put yourself in the environment to get done what you need to get done. I have seen time and time again doing this, it actually sparks something that the action itself gives confidence in that, "Hey, I can do this," but also surprisingly things start to happen. If you're on the right track and you're doing what you need to do, and that's an example, putting yourself in a space where you need to be to meet people, it's highly likely you're going to meet people and you're going to have the conversations that you need to have. You may just be sitting at a table and the person next to you says, "Hey, I'm so and so, and how are you?" And, "Oh, well, what are you here for?" And you're like, "Well, I'm actually, thinking about starting this business, or I've got this idea and I just kind of, thought I would meet people and see what they think." And most likely the person's going to go, "Oh, well, tell me about your business." And there you go, that easy. So, but that would never have happened had you not just put yourself in the environment. So I think sometimes it's important, take the pressure off. It doesn't, we don't have to, in that particular scenario, for example, we don't have to go out and meet all these people and come back with, 20 conversations that we've had. And I think that's too much. It's taking on too much at once. Sometimes it's just, a little bit at a time, and do what you feel like you can do. Just getting out of the house. And if you have a lot of anxiety around, here's another example of something like that. Maybe just getting out of the house is the first step. Maybe if you are someone who has been sort of stuck inside and working on something every day for weeks, and you're like, "I know I need to do it. I know I need to do it. I know I need to do it." And maybe step one is just scheduling yourself to get out and get coffee at 9 a.m. Maybe it's just getting in the car, going and getting coffee, coming back to the house. Maybe it's and then maybe it's getting coffee and then staying there and working for an hour and scheduling, where might you go the next week? Pick 2 places and then getting home. It's whatever it is that you need to do to reach that goal and take that action, even if it's little bitty steps, that's okay. Because I really believe that if every day you just move yourself forward a little bit more, even if it's this much, that will get you where you're going. That will get you where you're meant to be. Most successful ideas they don't look like they started at the beginning. They evolve because somebody started. Because somebody started, somebody took the first step, somebody took the first action. Everything's going to evolve. It's not going to be perfect. We just got to take the first step. We don't create momentum by waiting until we know the path. Sometimes we discover the path because we finally start walking.